Hey friends, it's Greg Corrali, and this is The Real Deal. Welcome back. This week, I am continuing my discussion of my 10 essentials of safety excellence. We are on essential number 7, and that is called universal organizational alignment. Essential number 7, universal organizational alignment. Woo! Look, if you recall, when I first introduced these several weeks back, I categorized my 10 essentials into 3 groups: people, process, and performance. Universal organizational alignment, it's the first of what I call the performance elements. As performance, it can be greatly enhanced when all efforts and all parties are in universal alignment. It sets up the frontline workforce for success, as I hope you will see here through our discussion today. So for today, I developed a hypothesis, and it's this: universal organizational alignment produces safer workplaces. It greatly increases the probability of successful safety outcomes and achieving safety excellence. That's it. And safety excellence, of course, is how you define it for your organization or your work unit. Hopefully, you've set the bar high, referring to my standards of excellence. So you've set high standards of excellence when it comes to safety. You have a good balanced scorecard of both leading and lagging metrics, right? You've probably got the traditional ones on there: injury severity rates, injury frequency rates. Maybe you've got the safety culture survey score. Maybe you've got audits and observations. So make sure you have a good mix of both leading and lagging indicators that define safety excellence for your organization. Okay, so somewhat similar to last week, today I'm going to answer 3 questions: who, what, and why. Last week it was who, how, and why, and this week it's going to be who, what, and why. All right, first, who. Who needs to be universally aligned on safety? Then what? What do they and their organizations need to be aligned on? And then most importantly, the why question. Always most importantly, why does there need to be universal organizational alignment? I think the answer is going to become obvious through our discussion today. All right, and then I'm going to close with just a brief story about how critically important it is to have universal organizational alignment on workplace safety. And you'd be surprised that where misalignment occurs in an organization, it can happen at any level and every level. All right, so look, as I did last week, I don't want to assume anything, so let's start with the definition of some terms. Now, so let's talk about alignment first. I love the word alignment. It reminds me of many years ago. I was in some kind of discussion back in the Midwest, and a fellow executive was talking about how they hate that word alignment. I don't know why. I have no idea. I didn't ask them, but all it did was further entrench in my mind how much I love the word alignment. Love it. When you're aligned, right, when you're all rowing in the same direction, you're going to be more efficient. You're going to be more effective. You're going to be more impactful. So I love the word. That's alignment. And alignment means, here's the simple definition: a position of agreement or alliance. We're in agreement. We're in alignment. Okay. And then the word universal. Simple definition here as well: present or occurring everywhere. So universal is present or occurring everywhere. Kind of like ubiquitous. Remember, ubiquitous employee engagement from last week? All right, so in order to achieve safety excellence, organizations must be in agreement everywhere when it comes to safety. How cool is that? Doesn't that sound right? Yes, it absolutely does. Again, for reasons which will become apparent through our discussion. Okay, all right, let's start with the first question: who? Who needs to be universally aligned on safety? The short answer is everyone. Everyone in the organization. And then the organization itself with a few external parties. And we'll talk about those external parties. So who's everyone? Rather than just rattle off a list of these groups on who needs to be universally aligned around safety, I thought a better way to do this was to discuss some groups of people in the organization that work fairly regularly with each other on a day-to-day basis. So as an example, frontline workers, They need to be universally aligned with frontline supervisors, don't they? Not just on safety, of course, but safety is our discussion for today. They need to be aligned on everything, don't they? I mean, in order to safely execute work in the field or on the factory floor, shouldn't a first-line supervisor's expectations on safe behaviors and following safety rules be understood and practiced by his or her employees? Of course. And if the frontline worker has a different perspective on a particular way of performing a job safely, wouldn't it be best to have him or her share with their supervisor to ensure that they're on the same page? I mean, it works both ways, of course, right? That's alignment. And to put a final point on this working relationship, what if the frontline supervisor and frontline worker, they can't come to agreement? What do you do then? Well, how about asking a safety pro, right? The safety professional staff. They've got all kinds of expertise. They can provide guidance in terms of the hazards involved, risks, applicable safety rules and regulations. This is what they're trained in. That's how they provide support to the line organization. So a meeting of the minds should ultimately bring this kind of situation to alignment, and that means a greater probability of the task being performed without injury, which is the goal, isn't it? That's the ultimate goal. All right, who else needs to work together and seek alignment on safety? All right, how about the corporate safety group and line management? They need to be on the same page. How about executives and union leaders? As a former executive, I was always on the phone with a union leader or at a meeting with a union leader, safety council meeting or a union leadership meeting at their headquarters. How about C-suite executives and the board of directors? So these are groups that they work together more frequently, but doesn't universal organizational alignment mean more than these constituent groups just working together? How about organizational alignment throughout the entire organization, vertically, that is? So shouldn't the CEO and his or her senior execs be aligned with the front line on safety? I mean, if not, wouldn't there be a huge disconnect? Shouldn't the safety goals and strategies that are developed by most likely and or approved by the senior management, shouldn't they be translated and understood by the frontline workers who are carrying out the work to ensure that they're in alignment with those goals and objectives and strategies and actions? Of course. Of course. All right. Lastly, corporations and companies, they need to be aligned with their safety regulators. Folks like OSHA or PHMSA. Now, OSHA, you're probably more familiar with them. They're the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. PHMSA, maybe you're less familiar with them. They're the U.S. Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration. All right, so don't you as an organization at a minimum want to understand all the safety regulations that apply to your business to ensure that you're in compliance? Yeah, how do you do that? Well, you ensure that you have a relationship with those regulators. You can actually reach out to them. They might resist, right? They might want to keep you at arm's length, but I can tell you, I had a relationship with the regional director of OSHA back in New Jersey when I was the corporate safety manager. I mean, you don't always want to just have an adversarial relationship or wait till they show up to do an audit. Why not work with them? Why not admit where you maybe have got a gap and maybe you need their help? How about that? Wouldn't they look favorably upon that? I think they would. All right, so you develop a relationship with those regulators. How else do you make sure you're in compliance? You ensure that you've got people who are educated on and trained in those safety regulations, your safety pros, your safety staff, right? They go to all the courses. They take the training. They get the certifications. They understand the rules, and then they learn how to apply them to your business. And they help frontline management implement those so that you're in compliance with the law. That's what they do. You can also build those safety regulations, rules, and practices into your work procedures and your training for your workers so that when workers are trained, they're not just trained in how to execute the work, they're trained in how to safely execute the work. All right, got it? I think we can move on. Good. Let's move on to the second question. What does the organization need to be universally aligned on? If you're thinking everything, let me answer that question with a quote from James Rebhorn, the actor. He played the Secretary of Defense in the movie Independence Day from 1994. Now, if you haven't seen Independence Day, you youngins, go see it. It's an excellent movie, okay? The President of the United States at the time, he was being played by Bill Pullman, another excellent actor. And he's talking to Judd Hirsch, an eccentric father in the movie, and he's trying to deny the existence of aliens and what is famously known as Area 51. So the Secretary of Defense, as the president is trying to deny the existence, he breaks in and says, Mr. President, that's not entirely accurate. So when you're asking, what does the organization need to be universally aligned on, and you're thinking it's everything, that's not entirely accurate. Okay, why not? Well, at the outset, you don't want total alignment on all things related to safety. I mean, don't you want to discuss, debate, and share differing perspectives on the safest way to get the job done? Yeah, you do. Absolutely. I mean, even if there's a regulation driving a particular practice, that doesn't mean that that regulation has the specifics defined for every type of industry that it's applicable to. So sometimes it's subject to interpretation, and you have to figure that out. Figure that out with your workforce and how it applies. So at the outset, we want diversity of thoughts and ideas, and then ultimately, we want universal alignment on how to achieve safety excellence, how to execute those tasks safely and injury-free. All right, so let's bring it back to the big picture then here. At a high level, here's what I believe the organization needs to be universally aligned on. 4 things. Safety philosophy to start. Well, what do you mean by that, Greg? Safety philosophy sounds complicated. It's not. How about safety beliefs, principles, and attitudes? That's what philosophy is. You have a belief. You believe in a principle. You have a certain attitude when it comes to safety. So what do you believe in when it comes to safety? Do you believe that all accidents, incidents, or events are preventable? Or is your attitude in general that the work we do at our company, it's just hazardous? And the nature of the work, it's such that people are going to get hurt. It's inevitable. Look, those are examples of beliefs. And isn't it obvious in this example that misalignment here isn't good for the organization? If you've got 2 diametrically opposed opinions like that? All right. What else needs alignment in the organization? So that was safety philosophy. Second, number 2. How about the safety mission of the organization? Oh boy, another mission statement. Look, I've developed a lot of these, and organizations, they make them much more complicated than they need to be. Mission and mission statements are easy. If you develop them, and I've developed a safety mission statement now in several organizations where I was leading the safety effort and for other clients in the last few years. You can put it on one side of one page, your safety mission. It has 3 main elements: purpose, vision, and values. That's it. So whether it's a safety mission or a safety commitment statement, as some companies call them, or a company's overall organizational mission, it doesn't have to be full of all kinds of flowery words and fluff. Be clear. What's the purpose? What's the vision? What are the values? And in this case, when it comes to safety. So it seems to me like this is a natural extension from safety philosophy. So alignment around safety purpose, it's critical. So what's the purpose of your safety program or effort? Is it to work safely, prevent injuries? What's the safety vision? Where are you going in the future? 10 years, 20 years out, what do you aspire to achieve when it comes to safety? Do you want an accident-free environment? A workplace free from injury? Seems reasonable, right? That's a vision, a safety vision. And then lastly, values. How do you intend to get there? What's the culture? By aligning around and exhibiting certain standards of behavior, right? What are some examples? Trust, teamwork, collaboration. Or maybe you've even chosen safety itself as a value, right? Since values shouldn't change over time, right? But You've got to define how you want to work together as an organization. What are the values when it comes to safety? It describes the kind of culture you want to create for your company, and in this case, the safety culture that you want to create. All right, so that's the safety mission statement, purpose, vision, and values. Let's keep going. Next, third one is safety strategy. You've got to be aligned on safety strategy. Goals, objectives, policies, plans, practices. You need to be rowing in the same direction. Otherwise, you're literally going to be in a state of chaos. Everyone needs to agree on safety goals and objectives. Also, the major strategic safety initiatives being deployed. Right? And then as you get lower in the organization, the front line gets more involved in developing the details of how to make that happen. And then they usually bubble it back up to the senior management and say, here's how we're making that strategy come alive. Here's how we're going to implement it, and here's the impact we think it's going to have, and here's how we're going to measure it. Okay. So, if those policies and practices that are being implemented, right, they're agreed on, if they're rooted in fundamental safety rules and beliefs, then more positive safety outcomes will result. So what does that mean? It means that the organization needs to be aligned on fundamental safety rules and beliefs as well. And that's where education and training comes in. So lastly, and speaking of the fundamentals of safety, that was a lead into this, the fourth one, you need to be aligned around safety science. Is there such a thing, safety science? Yeah, there is. So let's get into it. Let's first look at a definition online. Here's one I found that's not complicated. Safety science refers to knowledge about safety-related issues and the development of concepts, theories, principles, and methods to understand, assess, communicate, and manage safety. Okay. Knowledge about safety-related issues. I like to call safety science the known knowns. You've heard of that, right? The known knowns. Known knowns are things we are aware of and understand. Things that we're aware of and understand. So we are aware of and understand certain laws of physics and empirically proven theories or hypotheses. Let me provide a couple of examples. Would everyone agree that standing underneath a suspended load is unsafe? If what is supporting that suspended load breaks, then that load's going to come crashing to the ground because of gravity. So there are fundamental safety rules and regulations in place that say we should never stand beneath suspended loads. Okay, here's another example. Working in confined spaces. We know and understand, right? Known knowns. We know through scientific analysis and empirical evidence that people can die in oxygen deficient atmospheres. So therefore, there are very specific safety rules and regulations about entering confined spaces, including testing the atmosphere to understand its composition, donning self-contained breathing apparatus when entering confined spaces, even if the atmosphere might be safe, as it could become unsafe during the performance of duties, right? So we know these laws of nature, we know these laws of physics, and we know this science that's based on proven hypotheses, right? And empirical data and evidence. And we develop safety rules around those to keep our workers safe. All right, you get it. So what do you do with these known knowns? You educate and train the heck out of people. You perform audits and observations to ensure compliance. And then you retrain everyone every few years as performance degrades over time. Takes a couple years, but you can be trained and you can perform in the field. And then after a few years, I've seen the curves on this, performance degrades over time and you develop bad habits, unsafe habits, and that's not good. Whew. All right, that was a big one. That was the what that the organization needs to be universally aligned on. Now let's get to the why. Why does there need to be universal organizational alignment? Isn't it obvious at this point? Well, to a certain extent, yes. but let's put an exclamation point on it. Why do all these employees performing all of these activities need to be universally aligned when it comes to safety? Here it is, safety solid gold. Don't miss it. Universal organizational alignment produces safer workplaces, period. For all the reasons I mentioned already. Alignment on philosophy, mission, strategy, science, and alignment amongst all the internal constituent groups and external parties. All of that will greatly increase the probability of successful execution and safety excellence in terms of results. Look, if everyone agrees on the mission and how to get there, then they won't be fighting each other or acting in ways that are inconsistent with the agreed upon direction. So there will be improved effectiveness as well as increased efficiencies in terms of executing safety, strategy, and action plans. And keeping it real here, not every action or initiative will have the intended impact or effect, right? We know that. And when that happens, if the organization and its people are aligned, they'll recognize that, and they'll recognize that a course correction is needed or a new or modified initiative or practice is necessary to try and produce the intended effect. That's the bottom line. That's essential number 7, folks. That's the deal. That's the real deal. All right, let me close with a story. Look, in one of my roles as a senior executive in the line organization at a major utility, it was expected that I provide a quarterly board update on operations to the board of directors. I remember reviewing the agenda for the first time, and I noticed, and to my surprise, that safety wasn't on the agenda as a line item. All right, I said, okay, maybe it's just expected that each senior executive provide a specific safety update for their business, which of course I was prepared for. All right, long story short, operations, which by the way, encompassed about 80% of the company's people and annual O&M and capital budget. Operations, it was towards the bottom of the agenda. That seemed a little bit odd to me as well. All right, and the first 2 quarterly meetings that I prepared for, I was ready to roll. I didn't even get to present since the meetings ran way late. They just canceled that part of the agenda. So both operations and the bulk of safety activity for the company, they weren't reviewed for 2 quarters. Now, after the second meeting, I remember I pulled my boss, the CEO, and the chairman of the board to the side and said, respectfully, the board is missing out on key updates from me and operations. And I said, nobody's talking about safety. I said, that's a problem. I said, if we have a major incident, and I don't know that we won't because I was fairly new to the organization. I wasn't clear on the safety culture yet. If we have a major incident, you're going to be asking me, why didn't I update you on the safety program and the risks? And then you're going to be pointing fingers. So you better let me talk to you about operations and safety. We were totally misaligned as a senior leadership team in terms of priorities. Okay, subsequently, they listened, which was great. Operations was moved up in the agenda, and I did get to present from that point on. And we were also starting each board meeting with a safety moment of sorts, which was also a new addition. That was in addition to the safety updates provided by me and other lines of business. We also established a health, safety, and environmental subcommittee of the board where we could get into more in-depth and detailed discussions of safety. So we got much more aligned around our safety efforts. It's critical for any organization to ensure that they're aligned throughout the organization on all the critical safety elements that make up your program. Hey, that's it, folks. Thanks for tuning in. That was essential number 7, universal organizational alignment. I'll be back next week with essential number 8 of my 10 essentials of safety excellence, where we get to discuss setting up the frontline workforce for successful safety performance. See you next week, and until then, take it slow and be safe.